Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Brian Smith with the Daily Knight, back in action here early in the 2022 season. And to be honest with you, it has been such a topsy-turvy beginning of the college football season, UCF included, that it's hard to begin at any one point in terms of where the season is headed. It has really been wild, and this past weekend is a historic one in terms of upsets. And UCF, like many other teams, are trying to figure things out. So as I get the Daily Night going again, a couple of quick points. I'm going to do some of it going forward as I travel. Probably be a little bit more of the podcast version than for you YouTubers, but because of where I'm located sometimes. But today's version will be both. The three things that I want to talk about today, part of it stemming from Gus Malzahn's press conference, would be the motivation after losing to Louisville. What's it going to be like against Florida Atlantic on the road? Because as most people know, when you lose a big game, oftentimes teams just collapse mentally. It's not like they don't go to practice, they don't eat right, or they don't lift. They worry about those things. So that's one that I'm concerned about. Two is just the physical health of Ryan O'Keefe. Gamble was out a little bit, although he came back in. I don't know what his situation is. And just injuries in general. After a physical game like that, especially on a wet turf, you have more chance to have some guys that are having some ankle sprains or some muscle pulls, etc. I'll let that kind of ride for now because I don't have any information, but concerned about that. And then finally, it's something that I'm not sure about, and it's the most difficult, and that's UCF's run defense. They played one team that they completely overwhelmed in South Carolina State. The Bulldogs ran for 36 yards against UCF. They had nothing for them. And then I have Louisville stats up here on my other screen. They did okay running the ball, quote unquote, traditionally, but it was here and there. And what I mean by that are run fits. And I'm going to get into that last. So first off, UCF comes off the game against Louisville. They lost 20-14. I am a big believer in momentum in collegiate athletics. I don't care if we're talking women's tennis, men's basketball, rowing, college football, whatever. The age group is the more important thing, not the gender, not the sport. People that are 17 to 23, and that's predominantly the age it is, they are more emotional. They take the good with the bad a little differently. How will UCF move forward in this game? FAU, you just look at the name. We're going to roll down there, put the football out there, and beat the bejesus out of them. You better not think that way. They're better than normal. N'Kosi Perry is the quarterback. He played, I believe, at Vanguard up in Ocala. He's a kid that played at the University of Miami, did not win the starting gig overall. I think he might have started like one game, didn't do well. But he's a pretty good quarterback. He's a dual threat guy, and he's experienced. And by the way, for anybody that didn't read my article this morning, experience at quarterback is all but everything. It's almost everything. It's ridiculous how important it is. Out of the top 15 teams right now ranked, like 12 or 13 of them have returning starting quarterbacks. Coincidence? Not so much. It's vital information. So, and Perry's a guy that's coming back. UCF had some growing pains this past week. Plumlee. It's the first time he's played in a few years, as Gus Malzahn likes to allude to, and did again in today's press conference. So the attitude of the players around Plumlee, I know John well enough from seeing him a few times, how he practices, press conferences. I'm not worried about him being dialed in. He'll be okay. But the other players, and Gus alluded to this, he goes, he's going to learn from this and that, talking about Plumlee. He alluded to the simple fact that the other guys got to play better too. Gus is correct. 100%. You can't have the false starts, etc. And I'll just throw this out there. This drives me nuts as a fan in general. 11 penalties for 111 yards is garbage. It is garbage, garbage, garbage. That is on the UCF players. No more, no less. That's it. If you cannot play clean football, I mean, you're not going to be 100%, but like if you have 3 penalties for 30 yards, whatever, but over 100, especially on the offense where every single player literally starting is in their 3rd or 4th or 5th, or even like Sam Jackson is a 6th year senior. That's as veteran as it gets. And they're still having some of these problems. I know it's game 2, but that's concerning. So that mentality wasn't even there for Louisville in terms of how I look at it. And I'm sure how Malzahn and the entire coaching staff, special teams, defense, offense, all of it. How is their attitude going to be? Will they be dialed in from the opening kickoff against Florida Atlantic? I'm going to say no. That's my guess. And I'm going based not off the players here, but just history of college football. You're not going to put FAU and Louisville next to each other and mentally them be just ready. All of them. Again, I think Plumlee will be. That's just his makeup. And some of the other guys like Jeremiah, middle linebacker, I'm not worried about him. He'll be good to go. There are certain guys. They're just built a little differently. But when I mean dialed in, they know every check. They've studied film all week. And when they see something, even if it's not something like a defensive player sees Travis or Coach Gibbs or whatever talking about something, they see something similar because like they throw a wrinkle in there. They'll be able to assimilate all the information and quickly come to a conclusion. Well, this is what I need to do. That's being dialed in. It's from start to finish to get to kickoff. So it's already started with film review from Sunday. That's what you do. That's part of college football. On Sunday, you watch your mistakes, you watch your positives, and you watch your teammates and you correct mistakes. It's not rocket science. Did they do it? I'm skeptical. I am, because it's hard to get up for a game like FAU after Louisville. It just is. We'll see on this next game, but keep that in mind. Point 2. Ryan O'Keefe is not the biggest guy in the world. I do not know, before anybody emails me, texts me, etc. I have no idea what his injury is. Not a clue. But he was banged up, didn't have his helmet from what I'm told. I didn't see him down on the sideline. I wasn't looking at him from the press box. But I'm concerned about a guy like that. If it was a really wet turf, that field drains well and everything. But if it's like a little nagging muscle injury, a quick twitch guy like Ryan, as much as it sucks, it is better for him to sit out. Those injuries heal one way, do nothing. It sucks. So it changes your game plan. And Coach Malzahn alluded to it today in the press conference. He made it very clear when he was asked. Jason Beat, I believe, asked him, if I remember correctly, what's O'Keefe's status? Real simple. We're hoping to have him. He didn't look real confident to me. I know Gus well enough to know that face was a very concerned one. So if he does not play, how much do you attribute the idea of playing a little more too tight end? Do you attack them? And I haven't broken down Florida Atlantic's depth chart or anything. I don't know if they run a 3-4, 4-3, and all that matters. If they're a little light in the pants up front, maybe you play a little more too tight end. Alec Holler comes in the game, and so does Gamble, and then you just go at him. Play a little more power football. It's possible. It's not like, the Knights don't lack talent at running back. They got a ton. So maybe that's something you do. But where do you make up the explosive plays? Because Amari Johnson is essentially his backup. He's hurt too. So they put Xavier in there, and he's done pretty good, but he's not going to know the offense in the ins and outs like the other two guys. That's just, again, like the quarterback article that I wrote with the AP poll on Inside the Knights today. That's the extension of it. I didn't get into that. That article was long enough as it is. But the receiver, if he's not a player that the quarterback is comfortable with, guess what? He's not going to throw the ball if he's open or not. They're running some shorter routes right now to Xavier for the most part, and a few others. But like on the last play, I'm looking back at it, I'm thinking, like, Xavier got the ball thrown his way, and it was behind him. Is that a timing thing? Is that just not enough repetitions between him and John? I don't know. But that matters. You have to be in sync. So who's going to play there? The injury shouldn't impact UCF to where they don't beat Florida Atlantic. I get that. But if anything goes wrong, like, and especially in the first half, like if it's the weather and all this, and it's going to be a muddy, sloppy game, you never know in Florida. And I could care less what the forecast is right now. I could care less. 5 days from the game, I could absolutely, unequivocally care no less. What I do care about is the following: the ability for UCF to throw the ball and gain some chemistry. I don't know if Kobe Hudson's going to be ready. I know that Gus said after the press conference on on Friday after the game against Louisville that he was not available, had some personal stuff to take. I have no idea what's going on with that. You can't be down 3 out of your top 5 receivers and have a normal offense. I don't care if it's Joe Montana in his prime. It does not work that way. Passing game works off repetitions and guys being fully healthy. End of story. So I am very concerned that you take not just 1, but 2 and 3 playmakers away just like that, potentially. And that's devastating for Plumlee because he needs those reps with those guys, and they need it to score points and win games. So do they go more 22 personnel, which means 2 running backs, 2 tight ends? Do they just play power football with Bowser a little bit more and rotate guys and go over the top to Baker, who's obviously, Javon has done a tremendous job of building a nice, balanced flow with John. I don't know what it is. They hit it off. But whatever it may be, that would be fine. If you want to do that, you can run up 450 yards offense pretty quick with shot plays. That's kind of old school football, and Gus has got that in his offense. Lindsey does too. But if you're going to do whatever it is, I just hope they know soon enough. And the situation with O'Keefe, they pretty much know by Tuesday morning. That way, they can just dead set go with it. And if he gets to play, it's a bonus, and he's added into the lineup in spots. Maybe he plays 10 snaps or something. Again, I'm guessing he's got a nagging injury. If what Gus said today is alluding to me anything more than him just being week to week, I'd be surprised. But he just seems to be one of those guys that got banged up. They're not sure. He wouldn't give any details, etc., and that's fine. I get it. But that's something to be worried about. UCF needs Plumlee to get reps with the number ones, and there is no limit to how many reps he needs. Live reps, in-game reps. So it's very frustrating. If somebody covers UCF and somebody that's around these guys, I want to see them successful. So it is what it is. Final and third point, the UCF Rush Defense. And this is the one that's hardest for me for 2 reasons. Number one, again, they played South Carolina State in the first game. It's not a good team. It's just not. They got run over when UCF had the ball for the most part, and UCF's defense flew to the football. They were aggressive and downhill, and the safeties in the corner. Everybody was aggressive and did their part. But more than anything else, they couldn't handle UCF's defensive line. Fast forward to this past Friday, and Louisville was goofy because you could never look at Louisville's rushing stats the same as other teams because from a quarterback standpoint, Malik Cunningham is one of the most gifted runners in the history of college football at the quarterback position. I'm not talking about tailback. He's not Barry Sanders. But from the quarterback position, he is. Statistically and specifically, the big play. I believe it was 47 yards he jaunted down the left sideline. And all that was, hey, there's nobody over here. It's a bust. This is a run fit miss. I'm taking off. And he's right. A gazillion times in the last 2 years, I have said he must stay in the pocket. And both times they lost the game based on they didn't keep him in the pocket. So that aside, fortunately, they don't have to play him again. But N'Kosi Perry can run. He's not Malik Cunningham, but he can run pretty good. But I'm looking at Malik's stats right now. In 2 games, he's got 30 carries for 155 yards, 5.2 per tote, that 1 touchdown. And in college, rushing stats count in combination with being sacked. So his rush average is probably closer to 7, if not 8, because he's been sacked a handful of times. But I digress. UCF, again, I'm going to say it. Seems like it's an albatross for me to say this. They have to keep N'Kosi Perry in the pocket. If he beats him from there, God bless him. Tip your cap. Shake his hand. Wish him well. Do not let him beat you on the roll. Do not let him beat you ad-libbing, especially. That means running or throwing. Possibly a combination where he thinks he's going to run. At the end, he throws it. Whatever. He's capable. And the reason I bring that up, because UCF has given up a few chunk plays to the basic running backs, but on the very next play, they'll just completely stone them. There are a couple of plays like that where they just walloped the running back for both South Carolina State and then again this past week against Louisville. It was inconsistent. It's year 2 for the defense. You're going to still miss something once in a while. You're human. But it was really random how that happened, where there would be a hole. Sometimes UCF speed would make up for it. And while that's valid, to rely on your speed, the run fit in the first place means that guy shouldn't have got the tackle. That's the safety or the corner or whatever. Or the will linebacker running across the field after the running back gets to the perimeter and cuts it back up. That's no good. There are a handful of those, and I know it's picky, but I look at it from a coaching perspective. If UCF does not fix that, and we discussed some of the offensive players this morning. I can pull it up on my other screen here. I can read the names. If they don't fix that and like post haste, I'm telling you, it's not only going to be a problem against Florida Atlantic in each team you play, but everybody accumulates film on you. There are people in those back offices. Their only job is to do X, whatever the coach tells them. They're going to find 2 or 3 plays based off what you're failing at, and they're going to beat you with it and run it in their own version. They might have a slightly different formation or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's the same play. What are they struggling with? Well, here's the problem. UCF struggled with inside and outside zone. What Louisville's Scott Satterfield likes to run is as NFL as it gets, inside and outside zone. We're going to beat you. Try and stop us. I mean, it's generic. And Louisville fans hate him for it, but that's another story. The bigger point is they've got a pretty darn good running back. And they got a really fast receiver to play action off of. Larry McCammon. And Larry he's not huge or anything, but he's over 200 pounds. He can bruise you. He can run downhill. He can do some things. Their offense is a little different than Louisville. Gus alluded to that today in the press conference. I haven't studied them, but their stats speak out. He's had a 58-yard run this year. Check out the article again on Inside the Knights if you want the details. But working off of read option, working off play action, if he gets going, then the one guy on the field that is their version of Ryan O'Keefe can get going. And that is LaJohntay Wester. He can fly. He's almost identical size to Ryan O'Keefe. And when you get guys like that can really run and they get play action, if you peek in the backfield, even for 1/2 a second, even 1/4 of a second, if the quarterback is remotely accurate because he's the first one out to dinner, basically, it's a free buffet. It's a free buffet. That's a touchdown. So a couple of missed run fits early in the game could cost UCF against Florida Atlantic. And I've seen that too many times, especially when you combine all 3 of these factors together. And that's why I put these in this order. Motivation. That's hard. I get it. You're coming off a loss. Do it anyway. It's telling college kids to get motivated is pulling teeth, but you're getting a college scholarship here. Figure it out. 2, it sucks if, and I don't know, O'Keefe doesn't play. That's a downer. That also can bog down your offense. You may get backed up. You may punt. Their first play after UCF punts might be going deep and they're on their own 48-yard line or something. They might go play action on the first play, try to get it to Wester. I don't know. They might run a couple inside zones and get 3rd and 2. Go heavy play action on that very first 3rd down. Perry he can sling. He's not a real big guy. He's real slender. He looks more like a track athlete, but he can sling it. UCF better be mentally prepared regardless of O'Keefe, regardless of Louisville, and they better figure out the run fit situation. I don't know if they're running gap scheme or whatever they're running at Florida Atlantic. I have no idea. Haven't looked at their film, haven't researched it at all. I care less. It's more about UCF this week. I'm going to do a preview of their defense, but it's not that important. It's about UCF. They have to kick them in the teeth because they've gotten mad. That's pretty much what it comes down to. So with that being said, the last thing that I'll say to wrap this up, I'll do another report tomorrow or Wednesday after I take a look at some film. But ask yourself, what do you think? What do you think? Does UCF come out motivated after losing the big game and they go on the road to play a team that most people could really care less about? Let's be honest, they don't. Most people as fans don't really care about Florida Atlantic Owls. They just do not. Do the UCF players? I know the coaches will because that's their job and they just get into it and they like to get in the X's and O's. That's easy. What do the UCF players say? This is on them. This game's going to be more on them than the coaches by a landslide. That's something to think about. So I'm going to put up this inside an article and Inside the Knights and drop this video in there. I'm also going to bring up some points about the defensive players for Florida Atlantic in the next 24 hours, probably tomorrow morning. I'm going to research it a little bit tonight, and we'll kind of go from there. But this is an interesting week for UCF. It has some subplots that are unusual. So let's enjoy it. Let's have some fun. Hope everybody's safe this week. Thank you very much and take care.